question.
Okay.
If I'm not in line, that's fine.
Okay, let that gentleman go and then you go.
Good evening, my name is William Wallace, I live in Mattituck. I'm listening, and I'm trying to be diplomatic. So we're here for, trying to come up with some answers, right? Like what can we, some positive, what can we do, right? And I'm not hearing anything. And I don't think, I didn't come here really expecting to hear anything. We're gonna walk out of here, and things are basically gonna be the same. And I'm not a pessimist, I'm really not, we got, what, half an hour left, we don't know what's gonna happen. And that's okay, it's a big problem. But part of what I think we're not talking about is, we're talking about the traffic coming. What are they coming to? Why are they coming? Well, because they wanna get pumpkins, they wanna drink wine. I submit, and in fact, I feel pretty good about it, that part of what's bringing people here, and I've heard the supervisor say it as much, the sponge is full. We okay too many wineries, we just okay too many drinking establishments. When is that enough? When do we say, okay, land use, why aren't we looking at land use? Why aren't we doing a better job zoning? Why are we looking at site plans a little better? Unfortunately, I wish I had other things to do, but I don't. I listened to one of the work sessions a month or so ago. A lot of good stuff in there. Jim Dizio especially. I guess when you're leaving, you can kind of open up. He says, well, and Ed, we're neighbors, I love you, but it's business, right? He said, well, when are we gonna stop accommodating this business? When is enough enough? It's chaos. I wrote some of this stuff down, it's great. It's chaos.
What's the question
Well,
from
I'll
Mr.
get to it.
Wallace?
Zoning, site plans, enforcement. And again, and then I'll leave my question. I also have a copy of the town's comprehensive plan here. One of the goals is enforce the town code. There were 59 meetings held in order to prepare this report. Every meeting, somebody mentioned the lack of code enforcement. So we can talk about what we're going to talk about here, what we may want to do. Great. How are we going to enforce it? Will we enforce it? Because we can talk till next spring. I am not convinced that we, so whatever we want to do, how are we going to, will we enforce the code?
Would you like Supervisor Russell to ask that question, answer that question?
Yeah, first, I think all the discussion here had been about this global analysis and impact on traffic, but now we're talking about one choking point. I understand that. I get that. And did the problem start there years ago? Probably. But the reality is it's all, you can do whatever you want there at this point. All the problems extend for miles and miles along that road. You know, I think the problem, yeah, I know. Let me just, yes, also you and I have, and we've had this discussion, we also have some fundamental.
I just wanted to say, I wanted to clarify that I did not say there was one problem or one choke point. I agree with you. And I cited you, that it's a townwide problem, and I agree it's a townwide problem. So let's not add things that aren't there.
So the question is about code enforcement, that's it. So you want to know, are we going to enforce the codes in the town?
Where it is in the town, it's in the town's comprehensive plan.
Okay, so it's a general question, okay.
Yeah, we've added to code enforcement. It was a very small office of one person years ago. We've added, I think we have 2.5 now. We have an attorney assigned specifically to work on code enforcement. We're actually bringing the police department in to help us. But code enforcement's an umbrella term for, that means a lot of things. So site plan compliance, things like that, I happen to think we get excellent site plan compliance. You know, all these different things from short-term rentals, you know, so we're dealing with a lot. When you say code enforcement, you're talking about a very, very large issue. So I think we've stepped up. I think we've added a great deal of resources to it. Do we need to add more? Probably. Doesn't mean the code is perfect. But I do think we do get substantial compliance from the public. You know, I'm not gonna sit here and say everybody's violating the code every day, it's not, I think we generally get substantial compliance from the community at large. Businesses care about this community just as much as anybody, and I do wanna say again, I don't wanna give wineries the bad rap, they're only part of the traffic generating problem.
So Louise, you want
Yeah,
a
it is
question,
it's
and
sort
then,
of related. And I'm asking Supervisor for an education on this, because I should know the answers and I don't, about our farmland preservation. And my limited knowledge of it on the county level, the county's farmland preservation is that land that the development rights were bought for has to be in agriculture, or at least not converted in such a way that it couldn't be used for agriculture in the future. Is it already the case, or would it be helpful if, when the town uses its community preservation fund money for farmland preservation, that those dollars don't go to land that can be used for agritainment, or that we could put parking restrictions on? I find it offensive if farmland is used as a parking lot. I don't think that's agricultural production. And I don't know if our Farmland Preservation Act prevents us using that land for parking or not, but I think it would be appropriate, and so I'm asking you to tell me how that works.
This is the double-edged sword. First of all, Southfield Town's PDR program specifically prohibits you from using the land that you sold development rights to for parking. Specifically prohibits it.
That's
Now,
excellent.
here's the other side of the equation. What happens is, historically, the town's always been trying to buy as much development rights to land as possible. The more we buy from that farmer, that ag operation, the less that can be developed. The problem is we painted ourselves into a corner, because we went and bought all that land, and then we sit down with the farmer, we say, we got traffic issues that we need to resolve with you. The problem is, they have no land to help resolve because there's no parking ability on that land. So we sort of painted ourselves into a corner by buying up all that land and eliminating the possibility of sitting down with the farmer saying, look, where can we find parking on your site? Oh, we have easement, said we can't. So that's the balancing act, that's the challenge. But no, you're not allowed to park in PDR land.
But would there be parking needed on a farm if there wasn't agritainment?
Well, agritainment's a bona fide agricultural operation, so if you're going to have a PDR program and you're going to allow agriculture on that farm, you have to allow agritainment. Now, agritainment comes in many, sizes, shapes, and definitions, and people can argue all day about what's agritainment, what's not. But generally speaking, agritainment is considered bona fide agriculture. You can't preclude the farm from participating in that. They're allowed to. It's part of the marketing component of an ag operation. It's allowed.
Thank you.
Doris, and then back to you, Mr. Wells. Do you want to stand up and just introduce yourself and ask the question?
Doris McGreevy, Mattituck. I was wondering about a few things. One, the question is, does the code enforcer work on a weekend? I'm asking.
Yes.
He does, okay. So if anybody calls on a weekend because of some kind of misunderstanding of what happened with a code, there will be somebody answering the phone or responding?
I would go to the police department. No,
Is that what you're telling people then? Instead of calling the code enforcer, call the police department?
code enforcement, if he's working the road, you can't get a hold of him. You call the police department and then they'll coordinate.
Okay, I don't think anybody, some people don't know that.
We'll make sure it gets out. And we'll make sure the chief knows, because he just found out when I just said that.
Second question is capacity. Now, all these businesses, and it's encouraged to come to these fine businesses, and that's all wonderful. But I know from the Park District, the room that we have for entertainment only holds 80, and that's the capacity, and it's up there, 80 people. And when Chris would go ahead and book people, we always have to keep that in mind. I'm wondering, are there occupancy capacity in the other places? Is the code enforcing and on that, checking to see, if the capacity is, too many people. Does anybody do that? Because that would relieve, when the parking lot is full, it's full. It doesn't mean go around to the lawn and start parking on the lawns, you know what I mean? Does a code enforcer around on weekends when it's busy to make sure, that people are following the law as far as capacity of their establishments?
I think a lot of that's probably complaint driven. If there is a complaint about a place, I'm sure the town attorney's office has code enforcement go out there and check on it, but I think a lot of it's probably complaint driven.
Well, maybe it doesn't have to be complaint driven now, because people are very sensitive to, the idea of complaining, but I don't think the code enforcer should really rely on a call from a private party when, in other words, at the Park District, 80 people in that room, that's it. So any code enforcer could come in and check something's supposed to be here too, right? Everything has to be delineated up there. I don't know, I don't know what.
So you're saying, what we're hearing you say is, if it's capacity driven as opposed to complaint driven,
Yes.
that you're only allowed a certain amount of cars in the parking lot or a certain amount of people in the building, okay.
You could overpopulate someplace and it wouldn't be, according to code. But if the code enforcer is not around, or you have to call the police, I understand, on a weekend when it's the busiest, and that's when all the cars are coming in and out and whatever, some kind of umbrella looking, different places, making sure that they have their correct number. The next thing there's only three, is the last, point. I was listening to all the problems that Peconic Bay Boulevard has, and that's such a beautiful place, and, I did ride on it, and I saw 30 miles an hour. I don't think people really believe it. I went through a small town once and to visit a friend in New Jersey, and she said, that main road, that's 25 miles an hour, and they mean it. And that's something that we have to get through to them. In other words, some kind of publicity on Peconic Bay Road, on any road that has such terrible situations like that, the word has to go out. In other words, I go on that road, I better do 30, and they mean it. Now, how are they going to get the message through? Publicity, I don't know how many tickets you give out on a given weekend out there.
Yeah, so Doris, at that point, I think, was it Chief Flatley that said about changing behaviors? I think you said that earlier. So do you want to address Doris's point? So what ways do you go about changing behaviors, citing all the things that people are saying about using Peconic Bay Boulevard as the example?
And we've used our speed trailer as a way of educating the public as to what speed they're actually doing when they go pass through there. We hope that might change their behavior, and in the future realize, well, I'm doing 40 miles an hour, I'm supposed to only be doing 30. Maybe that'll change behavior of some drivers. It's not going to do it for all of them, obviously. Enforcement is another portion of it, where if they see enforcement or talk to a neighbor who got a speeding ticket up there, that might have some bearing on them also, but those are the two that we use the most.
I'll just address, it's kind of been touched on, but maybe not explained very well, the flashing signs that people have mentioned. So, the Transportation Commission, we decided to bring to the town board, and we got funding to purchase some solar speed signs. And what these are is they're the same size as, they're 12 by 18, same size as the regular speed limit sign. It'll say the speed limit on it. It has a small 12 by 12 solar panel on the top, and then below a 12 by 12 digital panel that is the readout of your speed. So We are purchasing 4 for Peconic Bay Boulevard, for 2 in each direction, east-west in different places, just to, as sort of, to start off. I think New Suffolk Avenue will be another good spot for that. We did plan to do another, I think we asked for 20 total, so we have somewhere in the budget for those. So this is something that hopefully, I've seen them in smaller towns. They are very effective because you're driving into somewhere, maybe the speed's lowering, you don't realize how fast you're going, and it does make people aware. Obviously, there are still bad actors that are gonna just blow by the sign because they want to speed anyway. But I do think that they will be very effective as far as making people aware, changing habits, as we're talking about, and making people understand that they are going faster than, I mean, it happens to me all the time. I'm going 40 in a 30, you know, so I think that it will be helpful. And so we're gonna be looking for some other areas around Southwold Town that we can use these signs.
Can I just quickly dovetail on that? I think I can speak to Sarah. What we'll do is, Sarah and I will sit down and we'll investigate the feasibility and the legality of being able to put signs out. If we do that, well, you can write tickets from, we'll look at that. I'm aware of the red light district cameras with Suffolk County. In fact, a good friend of mine, whose name is Scott Russell, got a ticket for rolling through what I call a rolling stop foot west.
Must have been a misunderstanding.
No, it wasn't me, but it was someone that was driving. No, the thing is that we'll do that. We'll take a look at it, see what the viability, the feasibility is.
Yeah, it might be a good place, if we start with these digital signs, it may be a good spot to put the cameras, after we place these signs, and, then it's kind of a forever.
And that is addressing what, the story that Doris just told about her friend and said, and they mean it, right? So that's getting that, okay.
And
Thank
Suffolk
you.
Times, I didn't really get a ticket, so don't report that.
Thank you.
Hi, Joan Sear from Jamesport again, and I live just off Peconic Bay Boulevard, and I cycle a lot, and you've probably seen with my bright green helmet, and it can be a scary thing, and there's some days and times I won't go out, I wasn't raised stupid, so I had heard, Chief Flatley, that the majority of speeding tickets issued are actually to local residents, is that correct?
I just say the majority, I don't know, I don't have a count on who the tickets were issued to, but a lot of the vehicles that are being stopped are local residents.
Okay, so toward that end, I mean, if this is a solutions-oriented discussion, I have 2 solutions I want to propose. And the first one is, everybody here who's complained about speeding, don't do it. Be the example. And I don't care if there's 50 cars behind you in the wagon train. If the speed limit is 30, don't you be driving 45, because I live here and it's okay. So that's the first thing. Be the examples. Slow yourselves down and you'll force everybody behind you to slow down. The second thing, and no one here is going to like this, is do a blitz. Hand out a lot of tickets in the dead of winter when it's only locals out here, and train those people to drive slower to change their behavior. If they're the ones who are getting the tickets, hit them hard. And as for agri-tainment, may I suggest that you require reservations for people who are coming. It's worked for a lot of the breweries and wineries where they're requiring reservations if they want to come out. It's helped them with their staffing shortages. It's helped them during COVID. Why not do the same thing and put a cap on the number of reservations? I mean, I don't want it to get to the point where the towns have to limit the number of people who can be on your premise, but if that's what it comes to, I think a reservation system is a fair way, it's a fair compromise for both the residents and the people who want to come to your establishments.
Thank you, thank you. Carrie?
Just a quick question about where these signs are going to be put up, and the reason I didn't get back to you is because I have a few people still emailing me, because you want to protect the integrity and the beauty of Peconic Bay Boulevard, which is really now just a throughway. But a lot of people are saying they do not want that sign in front of their house because it takes away, it's not aesthetically pleasing. It just brings more attention that it is a raceway. Now, believe me, a lot of you already know, I'm speaking for well over 100 people. So they all come through me, my phone blows up, I had to make my own email for it. They're emailing me and saying, They don't think that that's a good idea. One, there's no consequence for it. Locals will just think it's a joke. When you guys put up the one that was the solar powered one, which is not good on a cloudy day. I came out and I turned down a road, somebody was doing 64 miles an hour. Some of it, they just wanna see how fast they can get it. If there's no consequence, it's not gonna do anything, and I just don't want the town to put money into something that is going to fix the speed that the tourists do, not the locals. And another thing is we want to deter the tourists from using our road. That's our main thing, because it is too dangerous. But I'm just afraid that it's going to trigger a behavior that's not going to be so good. And then another thing is, I know a lot of people do not want them in front of their homes because it's not aesthetically pleasing and it takes away from the beauty of the boulevard. Just,
Thank you for that, Carrie. Mr. Wallace, you have a question, and we're going to wrap this up now. So you wanted to ask your question?
Yeah, again, I think the supervisor may have mentioned it, but, again, from the work session and other things I've heard, parking is not an answer, right? I mean, you guys have always much said that. Parking is not an answer. Finding places to put people is not the answer. I mean, and you all have as much said so. You can get all the 2-yard land and have all the cars that you want, but that's not the answer. Because as soon as you find a place to put them, there are more cars behind them. In the, if I just may wrap up quickly, in the flyer that came around, in the invite to the meeting, it said something like, okay, how do these businesses affect the community? What are we, the citizens, how are these benefiting us? How are the businesses that are getting conducted in this town? How, we, the average citizen, what is it doing for us? And I'm not sure that we can put them in the scale.
Right, so that question, would one of the business people like to address that question? How does the success benefit the average person? Is that correct, Mr. Wallace? How does the successful business affect the average citizen, average resident? Do one of the business people want to address that? Mr. Strong?
From the chamber's perspective, I think it's two broad buckets. It's jobs, because, everybody says we want to be able to keep kids or grandkids in our area, and many people have that desire. So if we don't have vibrant businesses to be able to pay the kind of earnings that people need, they're not gonna be able to stay here. So jobs, I think, is a big one, and the tax base is a very big one. Businesses generate a lot of tax dollars, whether it be real estate dollars, sales tax dollars, community preservation dollars. Those tax dollars go ultimately help to keep our taxes, even though they're all higher than what any of us would like. If we didn't have that, they would be a lot higher yet.
If I may, that, and I agree with you, because I'm not a socialist, I have my own business, my wife's got her own business, it's not like, I don't see it, I get it. But I just wanna make something clear. When we say, oh, well, tax base, taxes that, well, the more business we do here, the better it must be for everybody, because there's taxes getting paid. No, there's no direct benefit that comes back to the town of Southwold because I buy something from the Magic Fountain. That's not how it works. So if we think that, oh, well, it's great because they're doing business here, that's good for us. That's not how it works. That isn't how it works. So I think we need to be a little more global, because that's not how it works.
Charles, do you want to say something?
Is it okay for somebody on the panel to ask a question?
It's 8:25.
Quickly. Jumping back to the Love Lane intersection, Michael indicated that the circle isn't a dead issue, but that we're waiting for the DOT to design something. And in the expectation that that won't happen while we're young, I would like to ask if we could do some temporary measure there to help pedestrian safety. something with crosswalks or center mullions to try and make it safer for pedestrians to cross.
Is that directed at Mr. Collins?
I think you'd probably have the best answer.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it's the same answer as the roundabout. It's the state, and it would have to go through their process. All of the things that the community wanted considered were in the report and considered. Anything in there that we want to do has to be done through the state. We have no control over that intersection whatsoever. It's a state road. So we would have to press the state to do temporary measures. And then there's always the risk that if you want the larger project, if they do the temporary measures or the lesser measures, they may stop there. So it's ultimately has to be a state decision.
Just to address the small business question, so if you look at the benefit of small businesses in a community, it goes beyond the tax dollars, and Suffolk County gets a good portion of the sales tax. And then because of the pandemic, the sales tax revenues are really sky high, and we benefited greatly. But beyond just the sales tax revenues, you have to look at the fabric of the community. And when you can go to a local ice cream store, the town's taken great pains to keep corporate America out of Southold, and to keep out big box stores and drive-through, fast food franchises and whatnot. So you have these local businesses, and they support your local charities. And they coach your Little League teams and CYO basketball teams. So, because they live here, and so they're part of the community. So that's one of the big benefits of small businesses.
So,
Let me just address one other thing we're not talking about, is that farms a small business, and how does that benefit the community? By preservation of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of acres of farmland. So you have to factor that into the equation. Now, maybe it gets to the point where the costs outweigh the benefits in certain circumstances, but let's not forget the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of acres that are being preserved by allowing the business side of farming to operate.
so, John Collins?
I have one quick comment and then,
I'm gonna wrap it up.
okay. So we talk about Main Road and New York State Route 25. We invited the DOT to attend. No engineers were available. They were going to send a public relations person via Zoom. We declined that. But, all right, so we're a two-party system in this country. We have elected officials in the state assembly and the state senate. Some of them even own property. One short walk down a non-sidewalk road just down there. Perhaps they could be called into this equation. Perhaps our state representatives could join us to help us solve some of these problems. It's very disappointing as a citizen, tax-paying citizen, to constantly hear that it's a state highway, there's nothing we can do about it. We are state citizens paying state taxes. Let's get represented by them. And since I opened, and I will let Mary close, I just want to say, on behalf of myself and all of the ward and all the members of the Mattituck-Laurel Civic Association, thank you all for being here. Next time, we're going to have some women up there. And to all of you here for coming out on this cold night. Thank you very much.
So it was a culture established from the very beginning that the Civic Association honored your time, and that's what we're doing here tonight. The other thing was one of the important things of a civic association is what took place here tonight. To have the residents come out and talk and say what it is that's important to them, and have the representatives come and be a part of it. So I think we all should actually appreciate this process and give a round of applause. Everybody have clap hands. Everybody. And it is because of this process that we leave knowing one another, and the fact of what community character is that you can be this close to your representatives and have that communication exist. So thank you to all of you for being here, and thank you to the Mattituck-Laurel Civic Association. Thank you very much to the Civic Association for hosting these dialogues and public forums, and then certainly to Jim Underwood, who's a representative of the Mattituck Library, for hosting us here. So thank you. Jeff is still here. Here he is. Jeff is still here, the library director. So take time to thank everybody, one another.